City Council is set up in such a way that you elect every 4 years from your own neighborhood a representative. In the alternating years, that's the 2 years in between, you elect 3 at-large representatives, that is, people that represent the entire city. This year is our year for at-large representatives. We have 3 seats to be filled, and there are 6 candidates running for those 3 seats. Just to explain the ground rules a little bit to you as I've explained it to them. I'm going to give a very brief intro of each of the candidates. They will be given 2 minutes to tell what they're about and why you ought to vote for them. In order to be fair to everybody, I'm going to be an absolute jerk on time. I will stand up when they have 15 seconds. I know, some of you are saying it's not hard for me. I will stand up when they've got 15 seconds left so they know it's time to cut it off. I'm not trying to be impolite to anybody, but on the other hand, it's important that we be fair to everybody. And that reminds me, Rankin, what are you running for this year?
I'm not.
Oh. A rare political event where Mike Rankin is not a candidate. I've had our immediate past president shuffle to determine the order that the candidates will be speaking. The first candidate is going to be Miss Chris Aludo, and as I'm introducing you, do you want to come on up? Chris has got a bachelor's from Georgia College and State University, a master's from the Fisher School of Business. She lives in Dublin with 5 children, and she presently is the Director of Administration at the Solid Waste Handling Authority. Chris.
Thank you. I actually really hate podiums, so I'm going to stand out front. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. So thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for having each of us here. I really appreciate it. So as I said, my education is in business, so I have a business background, but I'm in public service. I've been in public service for the last 14 years. Before working for the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio, I was with Ohio State University. So I have a long history of both public and private service. I've had some private experience as well. So one of the reasons that I wanted to step up to the plate and work for the great city of Dublin and all the people here, because we're really vested in this community. We have 3 generations of my family that live here. My mom lives here, my in-laws live here, and I have 5 children that live here. We have a unique situation in that we are a blended family. So I have 3 children that go to Dublin City Schools and 2 that go to Hilliard City Schools. So I have a good understanding of some of the other folks that we have in our community who live in Dublin but have kids in the Hilliard City Schools. I think Dublin is a great place to live. I think City Council overall has done a really good job at taking this city where we want them to go. They listen to what we have to say. They try to make really solid development decisions and infrastructure decisions. So part of what I want to do is to continue that great tradition so that we can think of Dublin in perpetuity, so that we provide our children and our most experienced citizens with a great place to live with lots of wonderful amenities. So I do support Bridge Street. I think there are definitely some things we need to keep our eye on as far as Bridge Street is concerned. That's probably the biggest issue that we have going on. And one of the great things I've learned is talking with folks is there are a lot of real issues too. You know, there's the fence around your golf course at tournament time that folks really get concerned about. So, you know, one of the things that I can bring to the table is the great ability to collaborate and work with folks. Some fresh ideas that don't have a lot of baggage. So I do ask for your vote on November 3rd, and if you have any questions, please always feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you again for having me.
For those of you that didn't hear the alarm, she nailed that to the second. Next in order will be Kevin Walder. Kevin is a 6-year member of the Dublin Planning and Zoning Commission. He's been very involved with Friends of Dublin, which is a group advocating for community involvement. He's married, lives in Belvedere with his 5 kids and his wife, and has got a degree in international relations and is employed as an enterprise account manager. Kevin?
Thanks, Mike. Good morning.
Good morning.
My American story began in 1926 when my grandfather stowed away on a boat from England. He came with a dream and not a dollar in his pocket. My grandparents met in Cleveland, fell in love, moved to Akron, started a bakery, started a family. From those beginnings, the family grew to over 250 people, all of them in Akron. And then in 1970, the wheels fell off. The The city fell apart, my family scattered to the wind, and I moved to Central Ohio in 1984. And I never went home. I left behind a sense of place, a sense of community. And since then, I've worked to make Dublin my home. In the meantime, my wife and I raised 5 children, 4 dogs, and a cat. I didn't pick a cat. My goal is, in this small way, is to rebuild the home that I had, the home that my family had, the home that I took from my children when I moved here to Dublin, Ohio. I believe deeply in a sense of belonging, and that's why I'm running for Dublin City Council. I have several policy disagreements with the current council, but today I wanted to simply introduce myself to you. I believe that tax dollars generated by each of our hard work belong to us, not to the city. We simply loan those dollars to the city to do things greater than we can do as individuals. The city can build roads and bridges, and I can't do that. The city can provide park and recreation services, and I can't do that. The city provides economic stimulus activities to attract and retain businesses, and I can't do that. But what I can do is value, truly value the work and energy that goes into generating those tax dollars. I am unafraid to speak my mind, standing up for those things that I value, and I thank you for today for being part of my community, part of my Dublin, and part of my home.
Now, we've been doing these candidates for years, and this is the first time we've had 2 in a row actually get their time. Thank you. Next candidate be Rick Gerber. As you all know, Rick is a member of the Dublin AM Rotary. He's an incumbent city council person running for re-election. He spent a ton of time on the Dublin Planning and Zoning Commission during his period of time on city council, and he's a member of the Veterans Committee of that city council. Rick's a lawyer, one of the rare lawyers that has both a Juris Doctorate and a master's in taxation from Capri University Law School. Lives here in Dublin with Barb and his 2 kids. I'm surprised kids don't live here anymore. He's older.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Rick Gerber. I'm Vice Mayor and a Dublin City Council member. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this morning to talk with you. Barb and I have lived in this town for nearly 25 years. We do have 2 children. They're both out of college, and they do live here. And as far as I know, they're off the payroll, which is a good thing. I've served on City Council for 8 years. Prior to that, I served 12 years on other city boards and commissions, 5 of which was chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I do have a business and finance degree, and like Mike said, I do have 2 law degrees, the second of which is a Master of Laws and Tax, and I practice in those areas up here in Dublin with my own firm. I'm also proud to say that I was a member of the United States Air Force for 6 years. Dublin is an amazing place, folks. It is truly, in my opinion, a community. It has a great sense of pride, great resident involvement, great neighborhoods, great schools, and frankly, I think it has a great future. The city is financially strong, as evidenced by our financial reports. Recently, we had our ratings from Moody and Fitch, which are AAA, the highest of the municipality can have. And that includes, folks, everything that's going on in the city, from Bridge Street out to Amazon to Ohio U, all that sort of stuff. We have a great business base, all of which allows us to provide the best quality services to our residents. In closing, and I know Mike's on the clock here, it's my desire to seek re-election in the hope of participating in the continued success of our community and serve our residents. Thank you so much.
Next candidate is Chris Amherst Groom. Chris, I believe, is the only one that's been a lifelong resident of Dublin. Obviously, the daughter of Margie Amherst, who she and Dave here, she's a member of the Rotary. Her husband, Kevin, and her 2 kids live with her here in Dublin. Chrissy has got a degree actually in horticulture. She started out, thanks. She started out with longtime member and chair of the Dublin Planning and Zoning Commission. I give you Chris Amherst.
Again, good morning, and thank you for having me. I know you're all busy people, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here this morning. I want to talk about dialogue. So there is dialogue and there is meaningful dialogue. And what I want to talk about is the difference between those two things. Our city council has had much dialogue amongst themselves, amongst staff, and with consultants from the East Coast to the West. We as residents have had dialogues with our family and our friends and our neighbors. Our elected officials have been unwilling to have a public conversation about what we as a city are wanting for our future. We know that for every bright light that there is a shadow cast. What we haven't talked about in meaningful dialogue is what lies in the shadows of the bright light that we cast. What it means for our traffic, our schools, the fabric of our community, and what this type of heavy residential apartment and commercial space will perform, how it will perform over time. A long time. Because you and I will be paying for it for the next 30 years. Make no mistake, every nickel that government spends is taxpayer money. Make no mistake. As a city council person, I will do just what I did on planning and zoning. Listen to residents, evaluate the data, and encourage differing perspectives to be vetted in a public forum. I will provide leadership so that all parties will know how and why their government came to the decisions that they came to. And they will have confidence that the costs were really calculated, that there is a clear risk, reward, and net benefit to the community as a whole. I will continue to put forth the effort it takes for the season that I am elected. I will push for that season to have limits, term limits. For our elected officials, so that differing opinions, fresh perspective, and rich diversity are at the core of our government. Thank you.
Now I've learned to shut it off, so I will not be interrupted again. Our next candidate is Kevin Cooper. Kevin's an 11-year resident of Dublin. He's married and has 3 children. He's been a member of the Community Service Advisory Committee. He's on city staff as Community Service Officer with the Columbus Division of Correction of the Dublin Division of Police. Kevin.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Kevin Cooper, and I'm running for City Council because I want to see Dublin continue to move forward. I want to see Dublin continue to be a leading community. And I think my experience, my perspective has really positioned me uniquely to serve on City Council at this time. Being on the inside, serving as a city employee, to being on the other side, serving on a board and commission. And most recently, being able to serve for the past 2 years as a community service officer alongside our division of police, where literally every week I'm on patrol alongside our police officers, and I'm out there and I see where our high impact crashes are happening. I see where our traffic congestion is. I'm in our neighborhoods where I see the issues we have with suspicious folks. I see the issues we have with trash pickers. I see some Dublin residents taking too many liberties at stop signs and in school zones. I think these are all things that are going to continue to happen as Dublin grows. We're going through a lot of growing pains right now, but these are things that we shouldn't be afraid of. It's things that we should move forward on. As Bridge Street builds up on the east side and we have new developments happening on the west side, these are things that are going to be challenges to our city. But I think having the right leadership in place, my positions uniquely are fit for that, and I think we have a competent staff, we have a competent city manager who can help us move through those things. So I'd love for some of you to stay after. Some of you I've met, I've not met all of you, to talk more about these things, and that's why I hope to earn your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
I got a clue I'm probably next month.
I was just say, does anybody have any guess who the 6th candidate is? Many of you know Mike Keenan. Mike is presently the mayor of Dublin. Mike has been involved in local politics here for
Over 32 years.
as long as I have. I think he was first elected the same year I was, in 1983, but that was as a township trustee. After serving several terms there, he was then elected to city council. Mike's on the Ohio Air Quality Development Authority, among other things. Most importantly, probably though, is Mike owns the Keenan Insurance Agency, which has been actively involved here in Dublin for God knows how. Mike Keenan.
Well, thank you everybody for the opportunity to be here. Just by way of background, I've lived in the Dublin area since 1978 with my wife Jill, 43 years. Excuse me. We have 3 children, and they're all adult and grown up now, but I have a grandchild, number 1 on the way in February, so we're really excited about that. I served as I have a Bachelor of Science from Ohio State University in Finance, I was appointed as a township zoning inspector in June of '83, and I also was elected as a Washington Township trustee in 1983 in the fall, and I served 5 terms. During that time, we bought the first 50 acres that became Doherty Fields. We really built an incredibly professional Washington Township Fire Department over those years. A very unique water tower station that saved money and land for Dublin. Station 95 in Glacier Parkway in the water tower, one of only a handful in the entire country. Put the joint dispatching agreement together that saved money for both Dublin and the township. I was elected to Dublin City Council in 2002, served on the Route 33 Corridor Committee, which really worked hard to plan the area between Dublin and Marysville, developed a lot of relationships with the City of Marysville, Union County Commissioners, and so forth. I was appointed to the Ohio Public Works Commission by Speaker Batchelder in 2011. We actually helped fund the Glick and Dublin Road improvements here recently with a loan out of that particular body. I was appointed by Governor Kasich to the Air Quality Development Authority in 2012, and we recently, last 2 weeks ago, just did a bond issue for $250 million to put a new paint facility for Honda. That's important because it's latest technology, latest state-of-the-art, and in terms of air pollutions and those kind of things, the wind comes from the west, that's good for Dublin as well. Also was appointed by Governor Kasich to the Ohio Police Collaborative. We're working on lethal force issues and excessive use of force, as well as looking into body cams right now. So I think all these roles of experience have lent themselves to really being involved in Dublin and doing the best job on the City Council. I thank you for all your support over the years. You have 3 votes, I'm asking for 1. Thank you, Mike.
If anybody else was timing, I'm technologically challenged and forgot to start the timer, so I guessed at what 2 minutes was. All right, what we're going to do at this point, I'm going to ask a single question, and I'm going to have each of the candidates in reverse order 1 minute to answer. And then we're going to open it up to your questions, because that's what's really important. Mike, I want you to spend, since we're going backwards.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want you to take a minute and tell us what the financial condition is of the city and what you would do to improve it if it's necessary.
Well, the good news is the state of the city is incredible. We just received, as Rick had pointed out in his talk, our S&P Moody's ratings. They were AAA. There's only a handful of cities really in the state of Ohio and the country that can boast that kind of rating. That was on the heels of all the work that's been done, the I-270 interchange, the Bridge Street project, and all the other projects you see in and around Dublin that's going on. It's noteworthy that I-270, we put roughly $20 million of our own money into the I-270 33 project in order to move that up, really up to 8 to 10 years ahead of the schedule that ODOT had originally planned. That's really kind of a big deal. Not too many communities can do that. We have the financial resources. We came up with a very innovative financial model with ODOT to make that happen. And I think it's really, really important for Dublin and the region.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think as it's been mentioned a couple times, I think the financial stability of our city is good with Fitch and Moody giving those ratings. We have, as I mentioned, we have a very competent finance department. I've worked alongside our director of finance. I know what they do every day to make this town financially stable. You know, those ratings are done by independent. There's no money exchanging hands there. There's no influence there. It truly is independent for them to come in. If you heard Greg Peterson at the council meeting a few weeks ago, him talk about how strong is Dublin, and it's important to have those independent agencies rate us like that, because I think that shows just how strong we are. So I have all confidence in our finance director and our finance staff on what they've done for our city financially.
Chris?
Dublin has made some tremendous financial decisions over a long period of time. That is, without question, this council and councils previous have been part of doing that. I would encourage you to read the financial reports that came out. The per capita debt went up $2,000 per capita in the city of Dublin after the financing of Bridge Street. It's important to know those are real numbers, and there are some things to keep looking out for. We can't continue on the pace of spending that we have begun in the last 36 months. We let $82 million worth of bonds, and that is a significant portion of our bonding capacity. So we will have to behave differently in the next 30 months than we did in the past 36 months. And we have $2,000 additional per debt per capita in our city.
I want to thank all you guys for being as concise as you are and factual in your answer. Rick?
That's because we're afraid of you, Mike. Our financial state, I believe, is very strong. The debt capacity is, we have, if we really wanted to go out there and raise a lot of debt, we have the capacity to do all that. We are very fiscally conservative with our approach with our budget. We take each dollar that we do receive, and by the way, we receive income tax from our businesses and our employees. That's the primary source of funding here at Dublin. And we take that dollar, half is directed toward the operating account. The other 50 cents of that is divided in half. Half goes into the long-term capital improvement programs. The other half goes into the bank for the rainy day funds, I call it. What is good about all this, we're able to maintain our curbs, our streets. We're able to take care of our infrastructure. There's a lot of cities out there, folks, that like Philadelphia, for example, it would take them over $1 billion to replace their water and sewer. But we do this every day, so every year, so we're in very good shape. Thank you.
Where are we, Kevin?
Yep. Thank you. A couple things to point out that were mentioned. The rainy day fund is very important. The city has a legislative requirement to stay at 50%, or not legislative, but it's a requirement from the ratings engines to stay at 50% or above. We're well in excess of that. And my concern around that centers on good spending and bad spending. Mike mentioned the improvements in the interstate. 270. That's great spending. We should do that spending all day long. $10 million, $12 million, that benefits the entire region. Spending $100 million on Bridge Street is bad spending. This current council has said from the podium, if this all goes bad, we're fine, because we have the capacity to handle it. That's not good decision making when it comes to what is, in my mind, our most precious asset, which is your tax dollar. Thank you.
Chris?
So the great part is that Dublin has done a great job in managing our finances. We do have a AAA rating from Fitch and Moody's, which is fantastic. One of the great things about the fiscal conservative views that the City Council has taken and that Angel Newman has helped us with is that, with the departure of Nationwide, we really didn't have to adjust our operating or capital budget at all. So that shows you the fiscal conservatism that we exhibit here in Dublin. I do think that Bridge Street is a big expenditure from us, but if you look at the finances and you really read the 200 plus pages of the report, it is well financed. It's been well thought out. The schools have been thought of. They're receiving basically a regular payment of up to $50 million, so they're not getting cheated either. So this is a great example of how Dublin works, and that's the kind of example of fiscal conservatism that I will help to perpetuate as we move forward. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank all the candidates for being able to keep this within time limits, so that now we come to the most important part. Sharon, you can wait till I finish the sentence.